Tomorrow is a Monday, and for many employers, it's the day when absenteeism traditionally spikes. While countless employees are genuinely ill and need time to recover, Mondays have long been associated with workers calling in sick after a busy weekend, often backed by a medical certificate. Most notably, Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga sharply criticized what he described as a useless medical certificate submitted to explain a witness's absence, reigniting questions about the credibility and the misuse of sick notes. At the same time, a judicial conduct tribunal is examining the case of a Free State judge who has been on extended sick leave for years, raising broader concerns about accountability, oversight, and public confidence in the medical certificates. So, how do employers distinguish between genuine illness and abuse of sick leave? What ethical obligations do doctors have when issuing medical certificates? Can practitioners be held accountable for questionable certificates? And where do traditional healers fit within South Africa's legal framework governing sick notes? Joining us are Professor Rantloane, Chairperson of the Medical and Dental Professions Board at HPCSA, and Bruce Mbedzi, Director, Traditional Medicine, Department of Health, Traditional Health Practitioners Association. But first, let's take a listen to this clip.
The medical certificates we get basically say nothing. Yours, Mr. Mokhodzi, says medical condition. That is what the last one before yours also said, and we had to insist on getting another medical certificate, which then stated what the real condition was. Just saying medical condition, that's useless, useless. It doesn't assist us, and ordinarily, that's something we just cannot and should not accept.
Well, good afternoon to you once again, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mr. Mbedzi. I mean, just on the question of clarity, I mean, where do traditional healers fit in as far as the legal framework is concerned, governing sick notes?
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to your viewers at home, and thanks for having me. The issue of a sick note is an issue which is very much regulated, and it has been legislated. It is provided for by the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. And then within that legislation, there are compliance that each health practitioner who issues a medical certificate should comply with. So coming with an issue of traditional health practitioners, we are currently in the beginning of the process that regulates traditional health practitioners, because the legislations that I just quoted, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, requires a sick note to be issued by a health practitioner who is registered by the regulator, of which in our case, the Traditional Health Practitioners Act number 22 of 2007 has established the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council, which is established actually to regulate the sector or the profession itself. So currently the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council is not fully functional and has not yet started with registration of traditional health practitioners. That also affects the legality of the sick notes that are issued by traditional health practitioners. So currently, the sick notes that are issued by traditional health practitioners does not comply with the requirements of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. There are several cases whereby employers, through their bargaining processes, they enter into an agreement that they will accept sick notes. But in terms of the legislation that we have currently, the sick notes issued by traditional health practitioners does not comply with the requirements of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act until such time that the council that has been established is fully functional.
Okay, let me go to Professor Rantloane. A very interesting but at the same time complicated issue this, because some would say that if I go to a doctor and I say to a doctor, I'm tired, that could constitute some sort of ill feeling on my part. And how do you distinguish between a sick note that you got from a fake doctor and that the one that you got from a GP? Because the one that you get from a GP also, I mean, how do you say that it's fake, it's not real and all of that? What is the attitude of your organization with regards to this particular issue? Because clearly employers are not happy.
Indeed, and good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. Perhaps just to briefly, in responding to your question, make the point that sick notes are provided for in our Act. We were given birth to by the Health Professions Act, number 56 of 1974, as amended through the years, and therein there are provisions that provide for what a sick note should contain, and as developed in our regulations. So this is a legal document, and practitioners understand this to be a legal document, and therefore that they must comply with the minimum requirements as to what must constitute it. How one tells a genuine medical certificate from a fake one is a difficult one, really. At the end of the day, because of the rules, the regulations that are in place, there is an obligation on practitioners to be able to support whatever they put on that medical certificate. So if they furnish a patient with a sick note and that sick note is called into question, the practitioner should be able to confirm that in fact their examination of the patient resulted in what they've got on the sick note. So fundamental to the genesis or the generation of a sick note must be an assessment or an examination of the patient. That informs what must come onto the sick note.
What then is your advice to employers who have suspicions, Prof?
So we also have, there is a specific section in our Act, Section 45, that relates to that as well. But in essence, employers have got the right not to accept a certificate that they perceive as being fraudulent or not being legitimate. But then, having said so, as we would have seen also with the steps that the commission have taken, employers have got a right to seek a second opinion. However, and this is, I think, is important, however, that second opinion must be consented to by the subject of that sick note. But employers do have that right to decline to accept it, citing reasonable grounds for their suspicion.
Yeah, but I suppose it's very difficult for an employer, just based on a general suspicion that this person may not be as sick as he claims. But what about second opinion? Can they force I know I'm delving into legal issues here, but to what extent is a second opinion on the employer side an availability in terms of options?
So this is really subject to the patient's consent. So it now is a process that will be driven by the patient. If you submit a sick certificate that your employer declines, obviously there are implications for your income that would have been earned when you are away. And then it's up to the patient to say, or that employee, to agree to a second opinion that would hopefully then satisfy or allay the suspicions of the employer.
All right, quickly as we wrap up, I'm sorry, gentlemen, we don't have enough time, but Mr. Mbedzi, I mean, what lessons are you learning thus far while the process to formalize traditional leaders issuing sick notes is ongoing? The version that we are getting on the other side, to what extent are you taking a leaf out of the challenges and the progress that they've made on this issue?
Yeah, the challenges that we are currently encountering is that most of our practitioners, especially the traditional health practitioners, does not understand these dynamics, and then they keep on issuing signals for their clients, and it creates a problem for their patients because the employers keep on phoning us and trying to validate whether the sick note is valid or not. And that creates a burden actually on the employees themselves.
Okay.
So we always encourage our traditional health practitioners to exercise a little bit of patience until such time that the regulator is capable or is fully functional to can register them.
Well, thank you to both of you, gentlemen. And like I said, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but there was Professor Rantloane, Chairperson of the Medical and Dental Professions Board at HPCSA, as well as Bruce Mbedzi, Director, Traditional Medicine, Department of Health, Traditional Health Practitioners Association.